morning, Church 180. We're so glad you're tuned in with us. I just want to encourage you to join us in worship. A lot of times it's hard to get started in worship and try to find the right heart and find the right spirit to do that. But a lot of times it's just best to just make that decision to choose to worship and say, God, yes, I will praise you. So let's get started here.
I count on one thing, the same God who never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out, working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will. And I count on one thing, the same God who never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting. The same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will, and I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names, and nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names, and nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will.
Arise, my soul, remember this. He took my sin and he buried it. No longer I who live, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead in sin, but I woke up to see the light.
No, I won't boast, but in the cross that saved my soul. All else is lost. The grip of fear has no hold on me. So where, oh death, where is your sting? No longer I who lives, now Jesus lives in me. For I was dead
That's all good.
That was very sweet.
Cool. We'll just say Happy Mother's Day, and you guys can hold up your.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful. I love it.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. This is so cute. I love this. Thank you so much.
Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, there we go.
Where's Robert?
That's.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day, Church 180. Here at church, we love moms and we appreciate you so much. We know that you are the heartbeat of most things and probably everything, right? Just kidding. But we do have these little succulents for you. If you did not get one, we would love to get one to you. So fill out a Connect card in the app and we will try our best to get one to you. Happy Mother's Day. Good morning, everybody. We're so happy you're joining us this morning for Church 180 from your home, your cell phone, your car, wherever you are. We're so glad that you're bringing us into your homes. And we're excited that you're here. And happy
Mother's Day. We at Church 180 only exist because of the generosity of many of you that are tuning in this morning. Everything that we're able to do to turn people towards hope in Jesus is because of generosity of everyone watching. And if you'd like to give online, there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can make a one-time financial gift at church180sd.com/give. You can also find the address there if you'd like to mail a check. We would love for you to download our new Church 180 app. The link for the app should be in the chat, and there's a lot of information on there, including a connection card. We would love for everyone to fill out that connection card each and every time we have a service. If it is your first or second time viewing our service, please indicate that on the card, and the card just helps us to get to know you better, maybe to find out what kind of things, how church can help you in any manner of ways. And lastly, don't forget the app is a great way to stay connected with our church. It will let you know any updates on any of our virtual meetings, any of our volunteer opportunities, and especially in this time of need, many different ways that the church is reaching the community. It'll all be in the app.
Another great way you can connect with us is through social media, Facebook, Instagram. You can also find us on YouTube. You can always rewatch any of our services in those live streams that we had there. Right after service today, we're going to have a courtyard hangout. It's just for us to get together, kind of see each other. I know at least virtually we can connect, so that will be on Zoom. Please connect with us, reach out if you need information on how to get into that. Also, at 11:15 every Sunday, we have 180 Kids, and it's a great place for the kids to get together. We have songs, and we do an activity together, so we would love you to join us, your kids to join us every Sunday at 11:15. Also, if you have somebody that's in need of anything, prayer or anything, you can email us at hello@church180sd.com. At this moment, please go ahead and get your Bibles, your note sheets, your pen, and check out this video.
Well, happy Mother's Day, Church 180. We are so thankful and appreciative for all our moms out there who are investing so much into the next generation. We've always said at Church 180, we want to be a church that's all about the next generation, and that would be one of our highest priorities. And we just want to stop and recognize you as the front runner, Mom, in investing in the next generation. Hey, today, I'm going to bring a message that's a little bit unlikely for Mother's Day, but I think we can roll with it, and I think it'll be okay. The title of the message is called Go Home, because that's literally what Jesus says to the man at the end of the story that we're going to cover. But to recap a little bit of where we're at, we're in week 4 of our series, Sheltered at Home. Okay, and what we've said all along is that the home is a very significant part of the ministry of Jesus, and Mark goes out of his way to point that out. But what we've also said is that the home is a very important part of your life. It was, it is currently, and it will be moving forward. And so without any further ado, on Mother's Day, let's jump into this unlikely passage in Mark chapter 5, verse 1. Here we go. It says this: they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. Okay, now let me give you a little context and backstory here. Okay, we just covered last week these parables that Jesus spoke beside the Sea of Galilee to all these crowds. And then we talked about how he did some of his most advanced teaching back behind closed doors in the context of a home, and he explained these parables to the people that wanted to hear it. After that, they get into a boat and they travel across the Sea of Galilee. And they've left Jewish territory and entered into non-Jewish territory, which the term for non-Jew for there is Gentile territory. And they're near the Decapolis, which is 10 cities that have entered into a trade alliance with each other. And that's where they're at. And so they take their boat across the sea, and that's where our story begins. Here it is, the most unlikely Mother's Day passage. Verse 2, when Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he'd often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. That's crazy, y'all. No one was strong enough to subdue him. No one. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and he would cut himself with stones. That's where we're going. This is where we're going today, because I think that Mark has a very strong point that he's trying to make with this guy. Okay, for one, this guy is the snapshot of Jewish uncleanliness. And so to Mark, to his Jewish readers, this would be crazy. And because here's a guy who's a Gentile. He's naked, he's demon-possessed, he lives amongst unclean tombs in a graveyard, and as we're going to find out, these tombs just so happen to be next to a bunch of pigs, okay, which is the most unclean animal to this Jewish culture. So this guy's a picture of uncleanliness, but I would say Mark's going even further. And Mark is trying to show his readers, his listeners, the epitome of a life that is absent from God. I think that's what Mark's trying to show. And the thing I love about this story is as we are finding out, in this life that is completely absent from God, in walks Jesus. Before we move on to that, I want to camp out at verse 3 for a second, because verse 3 kind of indicates that there used to be a bit of control. That there used to be, that he could be subdued. But the situation had deteriorated, hadn't it? And this guy's the original OG of social distancing. He's completely isolated, living alone, because he couldn't be subdued anymore. It's because of the situation that deteriorated. And there he is, day and night and day, crying out and cutting himself with stones to feel something. And sometimes I look at that passage and I'm like, man, why doesn't it seem like we hear about these stories anymore? Like, why doesn't it seem like God, we see anything like this anymore? And I think about this, and my question, that I have for myself this week is does it really have to look like that? Does it really have to look like this guy? Because I think that you and I could fast forward 2,000 years right here to South San Diego, and we get hopelessness, don't we? We get people who've, maybe even ourselves, we get people who've had control over a situation or a circumstance or something. And over time, we've seen that deteriorate. and whatever, whether it be a habit or whether it be just a situation in life, all of a sudden it was like, man, we used to have a little bit of control, but that's a thing in the past, and it's kind of spiraled down, and it's led to hopelessness. I mean, we get that now. I mean, we get isolation, don't we? We get loneliness. We see people as a result of that living in despair. We get we get the whole idea of people sabotaging their futures and futures of their loved ones. We get self-mutilation. We're not strangers to that in our culture, whether that be through actual cutting or whether that be through self-mutilation, through any other various physical means or emotional means. We get that. I mean, we get trying to feel something when all we feel is an ache. Like, we understand that. And you see, these stories, they've kind of conditioned us. Like, we read about this demon-possessed guy, and they've kind of conditioned us, along with the movies, to think that we need to see a little girl crawling down a staircase backwards with her head contorted to see anything like this. But the reality, and the point that I'm trying to make, which is the first thing in your note sheet, is that we have an enemy whose mission is to destroy our lives, including our homes. And I've put a bunch of scriptures on your note sheet underneath that to kind of reinforce what's going on. But the scriptures describe a war that is going on between God and this being. But the reality is we're going to talk about in a second, that God is untouchable. He's supreme. He's the champion. And so this being, this enemy, Satan, goes after that which is most valuable to God, being his children. And he goes for it there. And I mean, I think about this, and I think about this for me, and it's like, man, like, there's a lot of ways you could hurt me, but if you really, really wanted to hurt me, their names are Ruthie, Jenny, Charlotte, and William. And I mean, that's one of the deepest hurts that you could bring to me, and that's the world that we live in currently, where we have an enemy that's trying to destroy our lives. And it looks a little bit like this. I'm going to have it on your screen below you. It's the idea of being able to choose something that he's tempted us to over what God wants for us. And it's something like this. I mean, I wrote control over surrender. That we're tempted to choose this idea of control that we can't even really have over surrendering to God in his ways. Choosing idolatry over contentment. And choosing to elevate something above God that's actually not going to bring contentment over contentment that is found in God. Choosing jealousy over gratefulness. This is huge right now in our culture, especially with social media exacerbating us and us playing the comparison game and not being grateful for who we are, but jealous of who we are not. It's sexual immorality over purity. False teaching and making the Bible say whatever it wants to say or whatever else over truth. It's insecurity over security in Jesus, rejection over acceptance, deceit over truthfulness, fear over trust, and pride over humility. And what I would say is this, is while we're being sheltered at home and beyond, know that there's an enemy that's going after the destruction of your life, the life of your relationships, the life of your kids, and even your marriage. Happy Mother's Day. But let's get to some better news. Verse 6 says this. It says, when Jesus saw from a distance, he ran, and the demon guy ran and fell on his knees in front of him, and he shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, do not torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." And see, the second thing I want to point out this morning in your note sheets is it's a spiritual war that's going on in your life and in my life. It's a spiritual war, but there is already a winner. That's good news. There's already a winner. I think of this, and I think of right now we're really into the Last Dance, okay? I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan, and he will always be the GOAT of basketball. And there's this episode that I've just, one of the most recent ones we've watched, that describes the 92-93 finals, and the Bulls, the Chicago Bulls are about to play the Portland Trailblazers, and it's Michael Jordan and the Bulls versus Clyde the Glide Drexler and the Portland Trailblazers, and the media latches onto it and talks about this huge duel and this war that's going to break out in the finals between these two, and we learn that Michael caught wind of the media and he got ticked. And he told Magic Johnson, he said, hey, you just wait. You just wait and you see what happens tomorrow in this first game. And then they go out in game one, and the Bulls just trash the Trailblazers and win by 30 points. And Jordan's just walking off the court, and he looks at Magic, and he's like, and it's just this picture of like Jordan just saying, hey, this isn't no battle. This is nothing. And that's a terrible example of the gap between the power of God and the power of the enemy. But I say that to say it's a spiritual war, but there's already a winner. There already is. You see, we have a victorious God in Jesus who wants to come alongside of us in the battles of our life and help us win the war. And let me be very clear. You will not win every battle against the enemy in your life. But Jesus wants to move in and help you win the war. He wants to come into your life and bring hope and healing and help you wage the war which is going on for the duration of your life. And so he can and will bring hope and healing. So verse 9 says this. Then Jesus asked him, what is your name? And this is a little freaky what he says. He says, my name, I'm trying to do my best demon voice. My name is Legion, he replied, for we are many. And so then it goes on to say, I'll finish it up. And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. Okay, so this is like straight out of a freaky movie, because he's like, my name is Legion. And this is an area that's occupied by Rome as well as Jewish territory at the time. And the readers would have known exactly what this meant and what he was saying, in the sense that a legion was a Roman term that was used for once an army had numbered 6,000 soldiers. So he's implying there's a lot of evil going on in here when he's saying that to Jesus. But the thing that I find intriguing is verse 10. Which says, he begged Jesus again and again not to send him out of the area. And this seems to imply that there'd been some battles that were going on there, and the enemy was winning. So this whole scene was taking place at a hillside. Sort of like this. I'm right by our venue, Vista Del Mar, and this is the closest I've got to a cliff and in the hillside. But there's all these pigs, 2,000 pigs, that are on the side of the hillside, like just marking Jewish uncleanliness. And then in verse 11, it says this, a large herd of pigs, they were feeding on this nearby hillside. And the demons, they begged Jesus, send us amongst the pigs. Please allow us to go into them. I mean, this is crazy. This demon's asking to go into, you can't make this up. And so he gave them permission. And the impure spirits came out, went into the pigs, and the herd, which was about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. So you got 2,000 pigs that just run off the side of a cliff and are now drowned. This is crazy. I mean, some people are like, man, the Bible's just made up. Like, it's like, you can't make this up. 2,000 pigs drowning at the bottom. But I mean, I think about this for a second. I think about this small town, and 2,000 pigs would have been a major source of income. It would have been. I mean, it would have been a major part of this town's economy. And what we see is Jesus didn't necessarily cause this to happen, but he allowed this to happen. I was reading a commentator this week, Mark Moore, and one of my favorite commentators. He was talking about how oftentimes we want to blame God for bad things happening. And what he was saying was, man, like sometimes God allows bad things to happen, but don't blame God for the work of Satan and the work of the enemy. In this, especially in this story. I mean, verse 13 says Jesus permitted this to happen. And I think about this, and I want to say something real quick, and I want you to hear my heart, and I don't want you to hear any agenda, and I don't want you to hear any politics from this at all, because that's not the point. The point is, the bottom line in this story is, it seems as though Jesus cares more about the soul of one man than about 2,000 pigs. And I think about this, and I think about this story, and I think about what we're dealing with right now with COVID-19, and I think why would God allow this to happen? Like, why? I mean, I have no clue why God would allow just some of the physical devastation that's happening with people getting sick. I don't know why God would allow some of the financial devastation that is happening. It's crazy, and it just makes me stop and think, like, why, God? What are you up to in all this? And I think that from this story and from the course of history, the only thing that I can be sure of, and I don't understand the full scope of what God's up to, but the only thing I can be sure of is that in the midst of it all, God's turning people towards himself and bringing people from spiritual death to spiritual life. That's all I know. I don't understand the whole scope and breadth, but that I'm sure of. And then in verse 14, I love this. Verse 14, it says this: those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what happened. Now think for a second, 12-year-old boys, okay? 12-year-old boys. These are young boys that their only job is to watch these pigs. That's it. That's their only responsibility, and to keep them kind of in front of them. And all at once, like, you see 2,000 pigs just like get demon possessed and run off a cliff, and they're like, what is going on? This is insane. And can you imagine, like, 12-year-old boys like running back to town and go, we lost all the pigs. They're all gone. And they're like, wait, all of them? All of them. They all jumped off a cliff. This is insane. And it says when they came to see Jesus, they saw the man who'd been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there dressed and in his right mind. And note this, they were afraid. They were afraid. And those who'd seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. And then verse 17, this is a little bit scary. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. You see, he'd cost them too much. He'd gone too far. And so they'd had enough, and they just said, hey, Jesus, you got to go. You got to leave. And as one commentator pointed out, I read this week, Jesus is a gentleman, and he doesn't go where he's not wanted. And so he got in the boat, and he rowed away. So Jesus takes off, and he gets in the boat. And what we see in verse 18 is shortly after that, he feels a hand. And as Jesus was getting in the boat, the man who'd been demon-possessed begged to go with him. I mean, imagine that for a second. I mean, he's just been healed. He's in his right mind. Everybody's told Jesus to leave, and he's like, yeah, I want to go with you, Jesus. And he begs Jesus, hey, let me go with you. And then verse 19 is our sheltered at home verse for this morning. In verse 19, it says this: Jesus did not let him go, but he said, go home. That's our title for today. Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. You see, Jesus tells him to go home and tell him what he's done for him. And I would say this, okay, to you, and I'd say this to me 2,000 years later. Like in this story, your testimony is about what Jesus has done for you. It just is. And testimony is just a big word for your faith story. Okay, so your testimony is about what Jesus has done for you. And I think sometimes we think if we got to tell people about Jesus and we got to do all these things, we need to know everything about the Bible, we need to be able to answer everybody's questions. And I think that what Jesus is saying through this story to you and to me is that your testimony is all about what he has done for you. And this is key. Guys, this is key, because the question then is what has he done for you? How have you traveled with him, and how has he changed you along the way? And that's why Jesus says go home. And I kind of wanted to end by talking about what going home with your faith will look like, okay? What going home with your faith. Now, home is just a reference for the people closest to you, and right now it literally means at your home, but it's just the people that are closest to you. Going home with your faith will do a few things. And the first of those is it'll test your authenticity. I think about this, and And there are some people in my life that know whether I really practice what I preach, and am really being changed by Jesus. And that's the people that live under this roof, at my home. I mean, they know if I'm the real deal or not, and they know if I'm a phony. My kids and my wife, they gotta live with me and have close proximity with me all the time, and it tests your authenticity going home, Will. But the thing that's great, number two, is that going home with your faith will make Jesus real for others. I mean, how much more real could Jesus get for my kids? If I'm living out my testimony of what Jesus has done for me right in front of them, and they see a dad who's looking more like Jesus with his life and his patience and understanding and joy and peace, and gentleness and self-control, if I exhibit these qualities of Jesus and his spirit in their life, I'm making Jesus real for them and making him more attractive for them. But the third thing that going home with your faith will do is it'll build your faith legacy. It will. I mean, we talked about a few weeks back when we were meeting at Vista Del Mar, we talked about that about 80% of what you do, 80% could be done by anyone. That about 15% of what you do could be done by someone with a little bit of training. But only 5% of what you do can be done by you. And no one can be your kids' parents. No one can be a friend to that close friend that you have. No one can be a spouse to your spouse. Only you can do those things. And when we take our faith home and we go home with our faith, we are investing in building our faith legacy. I want to leave you with verse 20. I love verse 20. It says this, it says, so the man, he went away and he began to tell in the Decapolis, all over this region, he began to tell how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. Fast forward a couple chapters into chapter 7 and then into chapter 8. The next time Jesus came to this region, the next time he came, people were lining up to see him. And it was all because of the testimony of this man and what Jesus had done for him. And he had built a faith legacy, all by taking his faith home. Will you pray with me? Jesus, God, we thank you for your word, and we thank you for the way that it builds into our lives. And may we be men and women who join with you to win the war against the enemy in our lives, God. But may we also be people who go home and tell what you have done for us. And in doing so, God, would you build our faith legacy? Amen. So we're going to move into a time of communion, and it's the ultimate time of what Jesus has done for us. In the act of sacrificing his own life for the forgiveness of our sins, and to pay, to establish justice and to pay the penalty for our wrongs. So at Church 180 every week, if you put your faith and trust in Jesus, we just ask you to join us in this time. And we just ask you to take some kind of food and some kind of drink, and remember the body of Jesus that was broken and the blood of Jesus that was poured out for our hope and our healing.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire, another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. Was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free. There is a cross that bears the burden. Another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, with power set me free. There is a grave that holds nobody, now the power lives in me. There is another in the fire. Oh, 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 and I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as his face between where sin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. And nothing stands between us. And nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. And I know I will never be alone. Be another in the fire, standing next to me. Be another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, how good you've been to me? Tell them go them every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. And I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wears thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. And nothing stands between us. And nothing stands between. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. Be another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, how good you've been to me? I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Well, hey guys, we hope that you have been encouraged and inspired this morning. I wanted to let you know real quick about an opportunity that we have to serve our community. The San Ysidro School District is doing an amazing job with feeding so many of the families within our school district. Just even the other day, they had over 1,000 cars in line for the food distribution, and they've asked if we could get a few volunteers together to help with the next food distribution. That's going to be tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. from 7 to 9:30 a.m. on Monday morning. And if you are available to help and are willing to help, we would love to have you join us. I'm going to be there for that time as we serve our community in this time of need. So hit us up, let us know at hello@church180sd.com or in the comments section, and we will follow up with you and make sure that you have all the details. Other than that, we hope that you are inspired, that you have an incredible week. I'm praying for you guys, and we love you. Man, have a great one. Peace.